Gas utility says it's transitioning to a more affordable and sustainable energy mix, moving away from coal. NIPSCO President Violet Sistaveras is here with details on a major new initiative. Plus, Indianapolis IT startup Scale Computing scores $35 million in funding and a new product partnership with tech hardware giant Lenovo. Scale's plans include lots of new jobs. And big news from Marian University. President Dan Elsner is here to share details on a new ethics center and a partnership with shuttered St. Joe's College in Rensselaer. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business.
Stand by for Top of Show with music full. Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. NIPSCO, Indiana's largest natural gas distribution company, wants to shift away from coal-powered facilities to mostly renewables, retiring 2 coal plants and 5 units over the next decade. The Maryville-based utility says the change would initially increase residential bills by about $11, but would save customers ultimately more than $4 billion in the long run. For more on the Your Energy, Your Future initiative, let's welcome NIPSCO President Violet Sistaveras. And Violet, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gary. It's great to be here.
Okay, let's talk about this plan. Your Energy, Your Future. Essentially, you are phasing out dependence on coal. Why do this?
Yeah, so this plan really represents our future strategy. And as we really look at the needs of our customers and their expectations in and around energy, we see that they're shifting. Along with that customer shift, we're also seeing a real evolution in the industry as a whole, primarily in the energy markets, certainly in the technologies like solar and wind and battery technology. So as we think about those two parallel streams of work, for us, it really just intersects, and the time is right for us to take on this bold, customer-centric program that we've termed Your Energy, Your Future.
It's right now about 65% coal dependent, the utility is, and over 10 years, that goes down to essentially zero. What's the mix? What will the energy mix be at that point?
The energy mix will be about 24% natural gas, as it is, very similar to, as it is today, and then really the remainder will be renewable and some what we call demand-side management.
What employment? Will workforce? Will there be adjustments in workforce? Those types of things over the course of time?
Workforce and our employees are obviously critical for us to be able to deliver safe, reliable gas and electric to homes today, and it's an area that we think about a lot, and it's certainly a part of this particular decision for us. It's too early to really talk through and really know the details of the impact to our workforce, but what I can say is we have a commitment to work with our employees, to work with local and regional, even statewide education and training facilities so that we can really minimize the impact to our workforce.
Talk about regulatory approvals will be needed, the impact on customers' bills. I think initially you're talking about $11 a month for residential bills, but over the long term you're talking about savings that would be substantial.
Yeah, so we did in parallel to filing the strategic plan, we also did file for a review of current rates. Let me tell you the way I think about that. I think about it in the short term, and we're seeing some shift in the demand of our industrials that we needed to think about and take into consideration. And then I think about it in the long term, and that is really paving the way, providing the pathway to get to this new future of renewables. And so for those two reasons, a rate review and an increase was really important for us in the here and now. You're right about the average residential customer will face about an $11 per month increase. We know that every dollar matters. And for customers that are challenged to pay their bills even today, you know, we have a variety of programs, and as part of our review, we've committed to developing even yet one more program to help and to assist with those customers that need it. But my focus, Gary, really is this is the pathway to the future.
Let's talk about, as we wind down here, you're obviously a large utility, you have a footprint that extends 32 counties around the state. As you look at the state's economy, economic development, the activity, your assessment?
My assessment is we're very appreciative and really like what we see from this governor and from what we see throughout the state in terms of the state that works. And we feel like we have a very good partnership with Indianapolis and certainly a number of community organizations up in northern Indiana to be a big part of economic development. We're quite active in that space.
All right, a major initiative being rolled out by NIPSCO, Your Energy, Your Future, will be rolled out over the next decade and result in some big changes. Violet Sistoveris, thank you so much for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
All right. Well, still ahead, Marian University looking to the future with two big projects, a $9 million ethics center and a 2-year college. That's a partnership with St. Joseph's College. Marian President Dan Elstner will be here to talk about both. But first, Scale Computing has secured 27 patents, just landed $35 million in funding. CEO Jeff Reedy is here to talk about plans to add dozens of jobs, also a partnership with Lenovo. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by DMI, mobilizing enterprises for the connected world. Well, Indianapolis-based Scale Computing recently made headlines for partnering with tech hardware giant Lenovo to sell edge computing products globally. The Hoosier computing firm has also secured nearly $35 million in funding and plans to add 100 jobs. For details on what it all means, let's turn now to CEO Jeff Reedy. And Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Scale Computing, 11-year-old company, really one of the success stories in the world of technology in Indiana. You provide IT, virtualization, infrastructure. Tell us what that means.
What that means is we provide the hardware and software that runs all the rest of your applications as a business. And kind of what makes us unique is that we've built a artificial intelligence layer on there that enables that platform to run with little or no actual IT administration.
Yeah, so it's a model that has been successful. What kinds of companies really in your sweet spot?
Well, historically, we've done a lot of small and mid-sized companies where you have very limited IT staff, so we could augment what they were doing. Now what we're doing is going globally into very distributed environments like retailers, for example. You can imagine a grocery store would have no IT people on site, yet they have mission-critical applications that run there.
All right, I talked about the partnership. You talk about going global. Tech hardware giant Lenovo just announced a product partnership with the company. Talk about that.
That's right. So we've been working kind of behind the scenes with Lenovo for a while, but this is now taking that partnership globally, really targeting global retailers, very large, Fortune 50 type companies, as well as our kind of core SMB.
What does that partnership potentially hold for you?
Well, it's huge for the company because one of the biggest objections you always get is who the heck is Scale Computing, right? And so having sort of a big brother like Lenovo standing behind us and saying this is a great solution for you is a big deal.
There are people inside and outside of Indiana who really like what you're doing. Obviously, this latest round of funding, $35 million. That's a big chunk of money. Talk about that when, if you will, and where you plan to use the funding.
Yeah, so it was obviously a very large round of funding, which we're really excited about. We're going to nearly double the staff, and it's really to, on one hand, support this global expansion with Lenovo, as well as just keep kind of doing what we're doing. We've been growing sort of 50% a year.
Yeah, so doubling will put you up over 200 employees.
That's right, yeah.
You were at the Purdue Research Park here in Indianapolis for a number of years. You're now at the Union 525 in downtown Indianapolis, really cool technology space. Talk about the vibe. You're a Rose-Hulman graduate. You spent some time out in California, decided to come back and run this company and grow this company. Talk about how you see the tech scene in Indiana right now.
Well, it's come a long way. In the 20 years that I've been involved, it's gone from I was one of the only folks in town to now there's sort of tech startups everywhere, and the community of folks helping each other get off the ground has really developed.
You think Indiana's and Indianapolis blowing up the myth you can't grow technology here?
Well, I'm trying to do my part to help that. Yeah, I think we're doing pretty well, right, in comparison to a lot of cities.
All right, very quickly, 20 seconds, but as you look at the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see growth opportunities?
Well, look, I think we're on a path to hopefully be looking towards an IPO in a few years. You know, we'll see. You never know how these things go, but we're growing very quickly. Big partners like Lenovo help us get there, and this funding will help too. Scale
Computing, an IT company here in Indianapolis and Indiana, continuing to do great things. Jeff Reedy, the CEO, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, here's what's on tap now in tech news, served up by Sun King. Officials connected to one of the state's 23 certified technology parks, detailing an expansion. Plans at the Warsaw Tech Park call for over 50 additional acres. That's more than double the current footprint. And a new shell building will be built as well, all within easy access to US 30. Indianapolis-based Tendly, a mobile platform for child care providers and families, is rebranding. CEO Caitlin Kaufman says the switch to Moment Path reflects a commitment to improving and enriching lives. The software company launched in 2014. An Evansville-based business is the winner of the recent Innovation Showcase in Indianapolis. Quarion Technology develops tracking and control technology for forklift equipment. President Eric Pryor says the $10,000 in winnings will help the 3-year-old startup boost marketing and sales efforts. And for Tech News 24/7, be sure to check out InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Coming up, 2 Catholic institutions collaborating to create an innovative new 2-year college. Marian University President Dan Elsner is here to talk about the new St. Joseph's College of Marian University, Indianapolis. There he is in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by the seasoned commercial bankers at Star Bank, getting to know you and your business. Here's what's making news now around Indiana, brought to you by your Indiana Pacers. Well, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology President Jim Conwell has resigned effective November 15. The departure prompted by board issues and the need to focus on a family health issue. Senior Vice President Rob Coons will serve as acting president until a replacement is found. The Capital Improvement Board of Directors in Allen County has unanimously approved $45 million in funding for Electric Works, the massive redevelopment of Fort Wayne's former General Electric campus. The funding is the largest public piece of a $62 million package pledged to RTM Ventures, the joint venture leading the project. Partner Josh Parker says the approval clears the way for construction prep work. And Subaru of Indiana Automotive's Tom Easterday has been presented with distinguished awards from the City of Lafayette and State of Indiana. Easterday is retiring after 30 years at Subaru, was selected by Governor Eric Holcomb to receive the Sagamore of the Wabash Award, and also awarded the Marquis de Lafayette Award by Lafayette Mayor Tony Rozworski. Well, Marian University wants to improve the ethical business culture by opening a new Center for Ethics next year, thanks to a $9 million boost from Walker Information and the Walker Family Foundation. Meanwhile, plans continue to move forward for a new 2-year college set to open next year. And for more on these 2 big projects, I'm pleased to be joined by Marian President Dan Elsner. And
good
Dan,
to be back with you,
yeah,
Gary.
good to see you. Too big. You continue to launch these big ideas. This Ethics Center, Frank Walker, the Walker Family Foundation, contributing $9 million to this center.
Well, really, we have $9 million committed, and they're the vast majority of it. They're pretty close to that. We also have a Jerry Simbler Chair of Ethics, so they're making a very large investment.
Yeah.
And you know, he calls it his life dream, his retirement dream, to leave this legacy. Of course, it's a big part of his operation and himself as a person and business leader. So it's really exciting to partner with a fellow like that.
Yeah, great person, great family as well. And really this extends, and I know you're making this big announcement this week, this Ethics Center, it's not a new venture for you, that whole area of ethics, because you and Marian have really focused on that business ethics for a number of years now.
Yeah, if you went back to our course catalogs and requirements, we've always had an ethics requirement to graduate. When we drew up this vision about leadership and educating transformative leaders, we looked at bolstering the whole idea of character and ethics education. Mr. Walker put out a proposal to 7 universities to start a center because he's convinced it's not only the right thing to do, it's very good for business to attract talent and to build customer base that stays with you and survive as a corporation. And so it was a natural us, and we've been a partner with Business Ethics Indiana, which is a large central Indiana group of ethicists and compliance officers. So it's a natural outgrowth. This investment will take us another level, and we're excited to move.
Well, a lot of new initiatives and projects underway, among them a new 2-year college, a partnership with St. Joseph's College up in Rensselaer. Talk about this whole concept, the idea for a 2-year college.
Well, we did some significant research 2.5 years ago. The number of students in central Indiana alone, let alone the whole state, that graduate with a Core 40 diploma that don't go to college or go only briefly and fall out tells you there's something wrong with the offerings. There's really only one offering in the state in 2-year college. We thought maybe we'd take an innovative pop at this. We did focus groups. We found a big interest in what we're going to do, where you would go to school 24 months, have an associate's degree in technology, business, or arts and sciences degree that you could take a lot of different ways, and you'd be employed while you do it. So we'd contour the curriculum to the work. We have a lot of employers that are very excited about it. We're going to have a diverse student body. We're going to build the infrastructure. And we've been so happy with response. We've already raised close to $3 million for the venture for startup, and we'll get more. And we're excited about the mission collaboration with the St. Joe alumni on board, and that this thing will really move. It'll be a big contribution to Central Indiana. Starting in Indianapolis, neighboring the Marion campus, but this could ultimately go around the state of Indiana, including maybe even the St. Joseph's campus. Of course, the college closed. Absolutely. We're going to do a feasibility study of that. We think, well, our study shows us there's a need for a network of these, this kind of a pipeline into business, profession, and industry. So once we get it down here in Indianapolis, we're going to look for other neighborhoods and other parts of Indiana to build a network of 2-year colleges. Exciting development. All right. Dan Elshner, you continue to innovate and grow at Marion. It's had a big impact on Indiana as well. Thanks for joining us. It's our pleasure. Thanks for having us on. You bet. Appreciate it. Well, coming up next, after months of waiting, Amazon reportedly nearing a decision on what will be 2 locations for its second headquarters. Indianapolis, one of 20 finalists for the project, and we'll have new details coming up. Well, it's been over a year since Indianapolis announced it was one of 238 cities vying for a shot to land Amazon's second North American headquarters. And in January, Indy made the short list of 20 finalists. This week, the Wall Street Journal reporting Amazon planning to choose not 1, but 2 locations for its HQ2. Inside Indiana business reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has insights on what this means for Indianapolis.
Thanks, Gary. Like you said, the Wall Street Journal citing a person familiar with the matter, reporting that the tech giant is planning to choose 2 locations for its second headquarters, splitting the original investment of $5 billion and 50,000 jobs between 2 cities. According to another leaked report out this week by the New York Times, Jeff Bezos and company already in advanced talks with the 2 cities that will house HQ2, the Long Island City section of Queens, New York, and Crystal City, a D.C. suburb located in Northern Virginia. But there has been no official word from Amazon, so technically Indianapolis is still in the running. I sat down with Chad Sweeney, a senior principal at Genovis, the Fishers-based site selection firm tapped to help Indy put together its HQ2 bid, and he weighed in on the latest reports swirling around the Amazon sweepstakes.
It sounds like the information that's been leaked is fairly accurate, at least with respect to the finalist cities they're talking to. I think it was a surprise that they would split it into 2 different segments. Initially, as it was proposed to be their second headquarters, 1 location, all 50,000 employees at a single spot within one of the communities that had competed for the project. I think probably it's driven by workforce. Even in good times, in normal economic times, to try to attract 50,000 employees from a single market would be very challenging. There's been a lot of great publicity for the city from being a finalist. You know, 20 cities out of 238 applicants is a real accomplishment. Finally, I think there's a tremendous amount of information that was generated as part of the RFP response that will now be a resource as they pursue other economic development opportunities, and will be probably reused multiple times and tells a great story about Indianapolis and what it has to offer.
Sweeney says Amazon will likely make an official announcement on its HQ2 location before the end of the year. Gary?
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Well, coming up, Indiana University President Michael McRobbie says it's been a banner year for the university. In our Eye on Education segment, he's here to explain securing more than $600 million in funding for research and a record $550 million in donations, and how it will impact the state. Plus, the heartwarming story of 20-year-old Purdue student Tyler Trent. It has captured the hearts of the nation and captivated sports fans. We'll have much more on that story coming up. Stay with us.
Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
Well, Indiana University President Michael McRobbie has been at the helm for more than 12 academic years now in Bloomington. And in this year's State of the University report, he highlighted the school's record year in research funding and its impact not only on the school, but on the state and really ultimately the nation. In our Eye on Education segment this week, President McRobbie is here to talk about IU's expanding research enterprise and a growing student population on IU campuses as well. And President McRobbie is always welcome.
Delighted to be here. In fact, after my wife's last appearance was so successful, I was wondering whether you'd ever have me back again.
She's a tough act to follow. Yes.
She is indeed.
But it's great to have you here.
Delighted.
And again, your 12th State of the University address recently. In TV, we always find it challenging sometimes to fit everything in the time we have. And you may have had the same challenge because there's been a lot going on the IU.
I had exactly that problem. We had a record, second biggest total ever for research, record total for philanthropy, $600 million for research, $350 million for philanthropy, total of just under $1 billion. That was a record for the university, and all that money coming into Indiana, all that money means more scholarships for students. It means being able to recruit and retain the very best faculty. It means we can do new research in the university. It means new facilities. All of it benefiting the people of Indiana.
Yeah, what is it do you think that's driving that? Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of talent at IU and resources, but $600+ million in research funding coming into the university.
Well, I think it's a statement on the quality of the faculty and the fact that we've been able to recruit a lot of really excellent faculty in recent years to build on the base of great faculty that we have, and all of them are proving to be enormously successful in a highly competitive environment for research funding. It's getting harder and harder to get research funding, yet our faculty are being more and more successful in doing so.
And then you pair that with the $300+ million in total private, individual and institutional philanthropy. Right. That's a powerful combination.
Right, it really is. And when you look at what that actually means, that it really translates into new scholarships for students. And so far in our campaign for the university, we've raised funding for now 4,600 new scholarships and fellowships and 190 new professorships and chairs of the university. The first is 40% more than we've ever had before, and the second is about 35% more than we've ever had before.
You're also conferring a record number, more than 21,000 degrees across the platform of campuses, and the diversity of graduates and students on campus has changed.
Yeah, for the second year in a row, we've had over 20,000 minority students at Indiana University. So now the composition of the university as a whole mirrors that of the state. So when you come to Indiana University, you are seeing a reflection of the state as a whole, which I think is completely appropriate for a public university.
And that connection to community, the Grand Challenges initiative that IU launched to really address pressing issues, the most recent $50 million targeted to the addiction crisis, opioids and other addictions facing the state, that continues to progress.
Right, and we just announced, literally today, we announced the latest round of projects under our Combating Addictions Grand Challenge, and we're going to be looking at new treatments for people with opioid addictions, new therapies, new ways of modifying behavior, new ways of integrating those people back into the workforce after a period out of it, and so on. All of it bringing to bear the enormous strengths of Indiana University in the health sciences to bear on this terrible, crippling problem for the state.
We have about 30 seconds left, but a big bicentennial year.
Yes.
Next year, and IU in the midst of the IU for All bicentennial campaign, which is raising a lot of money.
Right, so we've now raised over $2.5 billion for a goal of $3 billion. Again, all of it focused on scholarships, fellowships, new chairs, new facilities, new buildings in the university. 231 days to go to the bicentennial.
Good. I know we'll be hearing a lot more about that in the coming
Absolutely.
Weeks and months. Michael McRobbie, the president of Indiana University, is always great to see you. We'll talk to you soon.
Great pleasure, Gary.
All right. It's time now for the Business of Health, brought to you by Hendricks Regional Health. Well, you've likely heard about Purdue's biggest football fan, Tyler Trent. This week in the Business of Health, Barbara Lewis talks with one of Tyler's biggest fans, his doctor.
Gary, thank you very much. Well, Purdue superfan Tyler Trent is equally dedicated to improving cancer research. Some of his tumors are now being used to better understand the role genetics play in cancer. Joining me is the leader of the Riley Precision Genomics program, Dr. Jamie Renbarger, and it's good to have you on the program. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I think the first question I think we all want to know is, how is Tyler doing?
Yeah, Tyler is an amazing, amazing young man. You know, unfortunately, at this point, Tyler's cancer has progressed to the point that we're not actively using any anti-cancer treatment, but really are in the mode of supporting Tyler in other ways and really helping him to achieve things that are important for him.
Okay, and let's talk about this tumor donation, because then we'll talk a little bit about the cancer he has, and a particularly aggressive cancer. How will his tumors be used?
Yeah, so, you know, one of the challenges that we have in pediatric cancer research, particularly in the setting of advanced disease or cancers that come back after the original upfront cancer treatment, is having representative tumor samples to study in the laboratory, because it's really the laboratory work that forms the foundation for what we can go on to do in patients. And having that important, what we call preclinical data or animal data or cell data is really what helps to guide us. So we're using Tyler's tumors. We took them to the laboratory as soon as they were removed, a representative piece, and have put those into animal models that we're using to study really ways that we can improve treatments to aggressive cancers like the osteosarcoma that Tyler is suffering from.
We've heard so much about genomics research. I mean, what is the promise? I know Tyler has said in the past that he's accepting that maybe the research on his tumors won't help him, but will help future generations. I mean, what has been kind of the progress made or the promise of this?
Sure. So, you know, cancer treatment is really shifting. It's shifting away from this traditional approach of using poisons, really. Mm-hmm. Traditional chemotherapy is really a poison that stops any rapidly dividing cells. And so it's shifting to really trying to understand what's driving specific tumors or specific tumor groups, and to use medications that are targeted specifically at those pathways, those cell growth pathways, and rather than targeting every cell that is growing quickly, specifically targeting the tumor cells. And so by using genomics or molecular characterization of tumors, we can essentially get a really good idea of what's making those cells grow and go after those very specific points. And that, together with harnessing the immune system, are really, I think, what we're going to see in the future of cancer treatments.
And he's also been able to raise money. I mean, for the Riley Children's Foundation, it's almost $100,000.
Yes.
He is incredible. Yeah. How has his personality and his life affected yours?
Yeah. You know, Tyler is an incredible person. And I think at such a young age, for someone to have been through so much and to be able to articulate in such a passionate way the importance of research, and really the importance of research to Tyler himself, I have so much respect for him. And he has done and really been able to help our program in such a great way. And without people like that and donors to support things to really help get research off the ground, we wouldn't be where we are.
Well, Dr. Jamie Renbarger, we wish you success in all that you're doing.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Barb, great story. Well, still ahead, a special political panel of insiders will sound off on the midterm election results and fallout. But first, Beth Goetz is the only the second female athletic director in Ball State University history. As we go inside Indiana sports, she details her 3 goals for Cardinal Athletics. That's next. Well, a face somewhat familiar in Indiana Intercollegiate Athletics has returned to the Hoosier State and is now guiding 19 sports at Ball State University. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill?
Gary, thank you. After spending 5 years as Associate Athletic Director at Butler, followed by leadership roles at the Universities of Minnesota and Connecticut, Beth Goetz has replaced the retiring Mark Sandy as the Cardinals Athletic Director and one of 2 female ADs in the Mid-American Conference. And we welcome Beth to the program. Great to see you again back in Indiana. You took the job in June. How's the learning curve been up in Muncie?
Well, it's really so nice to be back at what feels like home again in the state of Indiana. So I'm just thrilled about the opportunity to serve Ball State. And, you know, just like anytime you're learning something new and learning about a culture, it's really exciting. And so you're leaning on people and talking and listening to as much as you can so you can get up to speed.
How did you sell President Jeff Mearns on the fact that you were the right person for the job at the right time?
Well, maybe a little bit of sell there, but I think at the end of the day, it's really about saying, hey, this is who I am, these are my experiences, and these are my values, and is that a good alignment for Ball State? Hopefully we both agree this was the right path to take. But I think it's really just the focus on the student athlete and what that experience can mean as part of the educational opportunities that exist at Ball State.
Yeah, and from knowing your time at Butler, I know the student athlete experience is paramount. And of course, everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to have a great entertainment product. Right. But you got to have a great experience for the young men and women that are doing the work.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. And I think when you're student-centered, all those other things aren't mutually exclusive. We can win at a high level. We can make sure that they are successful in the classroom, and we can help prepare them as future leaders in our community.
Of course, you are in the entertainment business. You're trying to get people into the football stadium, the basketball Worthen Arena, trying to get people to show up. What's your vision for fan experience?
Well, I think, you know, particularly in today's world, I mean, we're all consuming sports in a significantly different way than we even did 5 years ago. So you really have to look at what the consumer is experiencing from the time they interact and buy a ticket to the time they leave an arena. So we're looking at every single detail of that aspect. And so whether that's the opportunity and the pilot program we have in terms of serving alcohol in our venues this season, to providing a closer experience to the field, courtside seating at basketball, all those different types of components really make a difference.
Ball State, in the midst of its centennial celebration, how does that integrate with athletics?
Well, what a wonderful way to join a university. It's like a crash course in the history of the institution, but it's given us a great opportunity to look back and look at the successes Ball State's had and what impact they've made on the community.
As we wrap up, facilities, you always got to take a hard look at facilities. So what's on the planning board at Ball State? Yeah,
well, to add to the already great slate of facilities we have, I think the one missing piece really is an indoor practice venue for all of our sports. Certainly football is in great need of that. We're the only school in the Mid-American Conference that still doesn't have an indoor facility, but something like that's going to serve really all of our student athletes and our students. When we get a little bad weather here in Indiana, whether that be thunderstorms in the fall and springtime or our winter weather, which may find us here soon, but that'll be a game changer for us. So we're really focused on making sure that can be the next project we break ground on.
Well, Beth Goetz, we're delighted to have you back in the Hoosier State. We hope you have a long, successful tenure in Muncie, and best wishes for Cardinal Athletics. I'd be remiss if I didn't say chirp, chirp.
Chirp, chirp.
Back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, coming up, a special political panel of insiders getting warmed up to sound off on the midterm elections. There they are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by the seasoned commercial bankers at Star Bank, getting to know you and your business. Well, each week, a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week, we've put together a special political panel to sound off on the midterm election results. Pleased to be joined this week by Faegre Baker Daniels LLP partner Murray Clark. Also, Indiana Chamber of Commerce President Kevin Breniger and Vox Global Senior Vice President Francesca Brady. And welcome one and all to the Insiders this week. I'll just start out. We'll kind of go around the horn on biggest storyline. There were a number of them at the federal level, state and local levels. But Kevin, your big story coming out of the results.
I think at the state level, it was the lack of change. A couple of incumbents that were already in swing districts got defeated, but basically the Republicans are going to still have supermajorities in the House and the Senate. All statewide Republican office holders were reelected. I think it bodes well for Governor Holcomb's popularity and good for the business community in terms of we have business-minded, pro-jobs, pro-economy leadership in the State House that we will work with and continue to move Indiana forward. All
right, so not much change at the state level. Francesca, your take?
I would say at a national level, the Year of the Woman. So it's the biggest surge in female candidates that we've seen, kind of a recap back to 1992. And really exciting momentum to see some other first Native American women in office, first Muslim women in office in some states. A huge sweep for Democratic female governors. So really, I think, exciting momentum on that front.
Do you sense that having kind of a snowball effect? You get the publicity and the fact that it's happened, and really to have it continue to have an impact going forward.
I think it definitely will. I read an interesting stat that many women don't run for office, not necessarily because they're not qualified, but because they don't think they're qualified. A 2013 study showed that men are actually 50% more likely to run if they think they're underqualified. And I think we've seen this kind of breaking through and creating a confidence boost where kind of non-traditional female candidates will continue to run, which I think is really exciting for our country.
Yep. Murray, your big takeaway.
Well, I think that obviously Mike Braun winning, right? Republicans gaining a seat in the United States Senate in Indiana, and associated with that, really how strong the Republicans performed on Tuesday. So for the future, I think that bodes very well for Eric Holcomb. I mean, he's got extraordinary approval ratings, as Kevin mentioned, and really at this point in history, it looks like the Democrats have a significant structural deficit, which I think if you're a Democrat thinking about running for governor about Eric Holcomb, that's probably not very good news.
Yeah. Going back to the Braun-Donnelly race, a lot of people were surprised at the margin of victory too, to be sure, and the polling didn't seem to be accurate.
Right, second cycle in a row, and there's a lot of theories out there why the polling has been so off, and I'm not sure I know what the answer is, but that was the biggest surprise for me. I thought the Senate race would be much closer. I think both candidates and campaigns probably did, and most people did.
Yeah, Kevin, you mentioned the business community, the fact that Braun is a businessman, is a business person. Do you think that at the end of the day was something that resonated?
I think, well, certainly it resonated with the business community. I think, even though we have record low unemployment, people are still aware of and concerned about jobs in the economy, and that stays pretty high on their, what's the most important issue list that they have. And I think he presented himself well.
Let's look at the national level. I think the expectation, Francesca, going in was that Democrats would take the House, Republicans would probably hold the Senate. That's what happened. Anything else to read into those results?
I think it'll be interesting as we look at the Senate going forward. I heard an interesting analysis about sort of the short-term versus the long-term strategy in the Senate. And certainly in the short term, Trump's popularity bodes really well for Republicans. It will be interesting to see as our demographics start to shift. Indiana, like a lot of states, has seen a growth in minority population. Our traditional Republican voter population is aging out. So as those demographics start to shift, what does the long-term prognosis look like for the party, and how does that What implications does that have?
Yeah. What do we think about how divided government will play out? The markets loved it. I mean, the next day, I think the Dow was up 500 points. But going forward, you've got, again, divided government. There's all this talk about potentially investigations and gridlock and all this kind of stuff. Murray, how do you see that?
and so that remains to be seen. I think the ball's probably in Nancy Pelosi's court, so she has a couple of different options here, and they've threatened to do some serious investigations. Hope they don't. I think there is a potential to work together to avoid gridlock, and they have some pretty quick decisions to make with regard to keeping the government working.
Yeah, well, and to Murray's point, I heard that the day after the election, Mitch McConnell went and met with Nancy Pelosi, as an olive branch with the message of let's see what we can get done together and find things that we can agree on. And but Murray's right; it's kind of in her court to decide what direction she wants to go.
In terms of activity and things that could have a big impact on, obviously, Indiana, trade, tariffs, those types of things, the expectation is that Trump theoretically could do those things through executive order, right? So wouldn't need necessarily congressional approval to do those things.
Well, and has already imposed big tariffs that route without congressional approval already. When you talk about tariffs.
In terms of turnout, because that was obviously one of the big stories as well. I've never voted early in my life, but I decided to do it this year, and there were 400 people in line when I got there. So it was amazing. Do you think this is something that's going to continue? Do you think this was an anomaly, a one-off, or do you think that voter engagement is going to continue?
My hope is that it will continue. I think it was really promising to see the strong early voting turnout this year. I heard an interesting fact about young voters, which is this is the highest turnout election for 18 to 29-year-olds in midterms in history. I think 31% voted. So I think if we're looking to them as the next generation of voters, that's a really promising sign, and we hopefully can continue to see that trend and see that great turnout.
Murray, impact on the 2020 presidential race. We saw what happened in the Senate and the House. We look at governor's races. Republicans, I think, were happy about obviously getting Ohio and presumably Florida and Georgia and some of those states.
But sad about losing Wisconsin and others, right?
Yeah.
Well, again, I would go back to Nancy Pelosi. I think her approach going forward, which is actually what gives me some hope she'll have some moderation going forward, because I think the harder you go at Trump, I mean, if you're going to kill the king, you better kill him, because I think it just, the whole Kavanaugh thing excited Trump voters and probably helped Republicans, avoided the blue wave that so many pundits, had said would happen. So I think that it remains, and of course, it's the economy, stupid, right? I mean, if the economy stays strong, I think it'll be great for him. If it slips, who knows what 2020 will look like.
All right, start with you, Kevin, in terms of the big winners, or a big winner coming out of this year's midterm.
Well, certainly Mike Braun. I think that at the state level, Republicans in general, holding their supermajorities in the legislature, all statewide offices, and related to that, the governor himself.
Yep. Francesca.
I would say suburbanites. We saw them drive really an interesting shift in the House makeup, and I think it shows the power of the suburban voter. I also would echo with what Kevin said at the state level in terms of Republicans retaining control, while at the same time giving a shout out to J.D. Ford, who pulled off a pretty big upset in District 29, which was interesting to see.
Murray?
Well, certainly Mike Braun had a big day, but I would suggest to you it was when the smoke cleared, Eric Holcomb was the winner of the day. Again, I think he enjoys a great approval rating. We have this structural deficit, at least at this point in time, the Democrats have, and boy, you'd have to think twice about getting ready to run against him in 2020.
Thank you, one and all, for some great perspective. Kevin Brinegar, also Murray Clark, Francesca Brady, thanks very much. And we'll be right back after this. Coming up next week, Indiana Grown is partnering with several organizations to provide more local food for Hoosier school lunches. We'll talk about how farmers, producers, and businesses are getting involved, plus our Trendiana segment with some hidden gems. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.